Welcome to the Peaked podcast, where I talk about gender identity ideology and other bad ideas, women's rights, and free speech from a European point of view. Rona Dua, good afternoon. Am I saying your name right?
Yes.
I say that as if I don't know you and I haven't been saying your name for years. I have been saying your name for years. This is not the first time we've met, but I've never checked if I'm saying correctly.
Duve is the real Duve.
Rona Duva, probably the most prolific, prominent feminist turfs in Germany. I mean, Germany has a lot of feminists, but you're one of the most hardcore on the issue, as I like to call it.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, Rona has been, you've been since how long, how many years now? Since when did you start to notice, not be a feminist, because I know you've been doing that forever, but notice the issue?
Yeah, about 2021, because I published a book, and since 2021, I'm in this issue.
Yes. So before 2021, you had noticed the issue and then you wrote a book in 2021. So when did you start to notice it, though? Because I have a feeling that you're like an old school turf, much longer before my time.
Yeah, about 2016, 2018, I saw what happened to Megan Murphy, to Kelly J. Keane, how they were thrown from Twitter. And I didn't really understand. I listened a lot to them. I listened a lot to trans people, listened to trans people. I discussed a lot with trans people, but I wasn't a public turf. I was a kind of crypto turf. I did a lot of discussions before in this issue because my main issue was violence against women. And so I said, there must be someone who is fighting for women, only for women, not for men who think they are women. And so the book was about mothers, and I had only one chapter about the rage of mothers and the problems mothers face in patriarchy. And there was only one chapter about gender identity ideology, and that was enough to be outcalled as a turf and swerve. And then I said, okay, if you call me out with my real name as a turf and swerve, you can. Now I can talk publicly about what I know. So
Yeah.
I won't be
It is a bit
silenced,
like
and
that.
this I think is my approach, not to be silenced about these issues.
Yeah, I think that's something maybe that our opponents don't realize, that once they call us all the bad names and the bad names circulate about us, then you just sort of lean into it and you say, okay, fine.
Yes.
Yeah, you're terrible people. Give us
Yeah, and
our words.
I think it's a legitimate position. Somebody has to talk about it, has to talk about women and what it means for women if everyone can say he's a woman. So I think there is nothing hateful in this position. Yeah, the only thing how they silence women is that they do cancel actions and so on. And I think we can only fight against it if we talk about it, if we don't stop talking about it. And at the beginning, we were only very few TERFs in Germany. And they listened to me also. They saw what prominent trans activists in Germany did to a woman like me. And so the number of TERFs were rising in Germany.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it tends to take off once people hear the details, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So there's a few different things I'd like to talk to you about, because Germany is such an interesting case. I mean, every country in Europe has its own specificities. Germany, I always thought, once the self-ID law comes in there, we're going to see. I mean, it's a numbers game. There's so many people in Germany. The population is so much bigger. Also, I suppose, I don't know. I've always had a funny thing about Germany, the fact that there's sex shops on high streets, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. There's much more openness about sexuality compared to like the Anglosphere, maybe. So I always thought, like, this is going to get revved up and turbocharged in Germany. We're going to hear crazy stories, and that's exactly what happened, actually. Redux who track all these kind of stories about the worst sort of perverts. They got a lot of material to work with once self-ID passed in Germany, I think.
Yeah. We also collected on a website called Was ist eine Frau? What is a woman? And we have a card, a map on it. And we also collect cases since 1971 in Germany. because we also have these transsexuals laws since 1981. And the problem is not new with these men who say they
Right.
are women.
I didn't know you had that. I thought it was only started in the last few years, but so that's been going for decades.
Yes.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, so that's also another thing about Germany is that there's a long feminist tradition that we don't necessarily have in other countries, or maybe to the extent that you have it. Just it's huge volume people, it's a huge population. What is it now? 70 or 80 million people in Germany. So
Yes, about. But I don't think we have so many real feminists. I don't think we have so many real feminists. We have a lot of liberal feminists who are very public, and but we
yeah,
don't have so much radical feminists and
right,
gender
right.
critical people.
Right. Yeah, I guess I meant in the before times, before the trans phenomenon, I guess there was academic feminism in the country. I mean, for example, I mean, in Ireland, for example, there were a few academics. I think it wasn't a huge thing. I always got the impression that Germany and Spain had a tradition of feminist critique that we didn't have elsewhere, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, we have Alice
Um,
Schwarzer and the Emma
yes.
magazine, but Alice
Yeah.
Schwarzer also thinks that there are some men who should have the right to call
Yes.
themselves women.
Yeah. But the German situation is interesting in also historical reasons, that there's a lot of like woke hits different in Germany. This is sort of the analysis that I've been hearing,
Yeah,
because there's a lot
of
of like
course. They love it.
making up. They love it. But there's like, what if we consider that woke is the making sacred of historically marginalized groups? Germany has history that causes it to be particularly sensitive about historically marginalized groups, maybe. So it has this culture of making tick up for things. So maybe that's why woke has hit you so hard. But is it also like
Mm.
just a general libertarianism in Germany, or what's the culture like that lends itself well to this mass institutionalized transvestism that we're seeing there now?
I think they have a long history of pedophiles in Germany. I didn't know it before, but I learned it from Genevieve Gluck, for example, from Redox, because she does an investigative journalism about the history also. And Germany was one of the countries with Hirschfeld, for example, who put this in the medical sphere, this whole gender affirmative surgeries. And yeah, we have a mixture between these pedophiles and also a very, yeah, a lot of women hatred. We have legalized prostitution, which is a big problem, yet that it's legalized to buy a woman for sexual gratification. And yeah, and also we have this Nazi history. And so they can use this Nazi history also for their political demands. They can say, okay, you are doing genocide. We all know this. You are doing a genocide, or you are a Nazi. If you say women have to have rights. We have in our constitution the Article 3, which was really hard fought for by one woman, where women are protected by German constitution. But at the moment, they try to put sexual identity in. So we will have the same problem as, for example, in Australia with Sal Grover. If you put sexual identity on the same level as sex, then women's rights are gone
And
forever.
I mean, it basically just comes down to one judge to decide which one wins out over the other, isn't it? Because that's how
Yeah,
I understand it
that's right.
is.
Yes. Yeah.
Once you put the conflict between gender identity, or in the German case, sexual identity, and sex, then somebody has to decide, okay, which one trumps which. Because if you keep a man out of a woman's changing room, she's denied her single sex space, but he's discriminated against on the basis of his gender identity. So a judge, if it ends up in front of a judge, the judge has to decide who wins. And in
Mhm.
many cases, in Australia, the man won. So yeah.
We have also a case in Germany from a woman who has a women's gym, and a man wants to come in this gym, and we have an anti-discrimination law. And in this anti-discrimination law, we have already sexual identity as a protected characteristic, and also sex. And so our anti-discrimination officer said to this woman, you have to take this man in and have to pay him money because you discriminated him on basis of his sexual identity. And she says, I can close my business if I take a man in. So the women pay a high price to go in a women's gym or not to see a man. So she is still fighting. She's still at court with this case. So we already have the proof also in Germany what it means if you put sexual identity on the same level as sex.
We know
So, yeah.
who wins. Yeah.
We have to fight at a lot of, like other women, we have to fight at a lot of, fronts or
A lot
something.
of different fronts, yeah. So there's so many things to talk about because you've got such a long and storied history with these assholes, excuse my French, but also there's so much stuff going on in Germany. So let's just concentrate on this one very prominent, specific thing that just happened to you. So we could maybe start from the beginning. Tell me how it all started with how your recent legal proceedings, how it all kicked off.
Yeah, okay. I wrote a tweet on, or a thread on Twitter about the EU attempt to put the conversion therapy ban in EU law. And we have the conversion therapy ban since 2021. So we see the problems that arise from this legislation. And the thread was about this issue, but I put as an example Mrs. Maur in this tweet to say we have at a very high position in Germany in a psychotherapist chamber, we have a trans activist who is fighting for this politics and for this interventions. And she's also a psychotherapist for children and youth. And she was also part of the committee who created this guideline for the treatment of minors in Germany, where a lot of other countries say it's not ethical or not it's not evidence based. They themselves say it's not evidence based.
Okay, so can you say a little bit about who Sabine Maur is? Just give us a bit of an idea of just her role, how important it is.
Sabine Maur was the vice president of the German psychotherapist chamber. So she was at a very high position for psychotherapists. And these chamber presidents influence politics, but also do courses for other psychotherapists, tell them how they deal with patients and so on. And she was also, as I said, part of the commission who created this treatment guidelines for minors in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. So she was very outspoken about transgender interventions and that people have to, if somebody says he's trans, in Germany you just have to say, okay, if you say you're trans, we support you because we have this conversion therapy ban. And you as a psychotherapist or as a doctor are not really allowed to ask questions or try to bring the person to accept their body. But if somebody says I'm trans, even if it's a children, you have to say, okay, you're trans. What kind of treatment would you like? It's a bit simple now. And so the year before, in autumn, there was a video published on Twitter from another person.
A video of Sabine Maur.
Of Sabine Maur, where she is talking to other psychotherapists about the issue of gender incongruence and gender dysphoria in children and also in adults, I think. And in this leaked video, she explained how psychotherapists can circumvent the current regulations of the German insurance, health insurance, to get so-called non-binary persons into it, so that treatments on non-binary persons are paid by the German health insurance.
Okay, so
And
she had
okay.
written the guidelines for the treatment of it, for the psychotherapeutic treatment of these quote unquote
Not only
patients?
psychotherapists.
Also
It was not only
endocrinologists, everything?
yes. It
Okay.
is the treatment guidelines for minors in Germany. And she was part of the commission.
Within those treatment guidelines, was there not any like, were they covering all kinds of procedures except not non-binary? Like, why was she speaking about getting around the non-binary reimbursement issue?
Yeah, because we had a court case in Germany in 2023, had a court case of a woman who did a mastectomy, and she said she is non-binary and she wanted the insurance companies to pay this. And the Federal Social Court said this is a new kind of treatment. And before the insurance companies are allowed to pay this, we have to um, press the pause button for all transgender surgeries, because these transgender gender surgeries were never ever tested if they are evidence based. And so there has to be wrote it down, a benefit assessment procedure by a federal joint committee to look into the evidence of these procedures and interventions. But this federal joint committee already knows that there is not a real evidence base. So, yeah, it's a bit mingled now. But this was the background. And so she knows that the insurance companies don't pay for non-binary persons at the moment. And in the video, she says that's a real ethical problem for us. And it is so sad that they don't talk about being non-binary if they are at our consultation, because the psychotherapists have to do an indication letter for these persons that they can take with them to the endocrinologist or to the plastic surgeon to do these interventions. So, and she explained to other psychotherapists how they can circumvent this whole thing and what they have to write on this letter so that the insurance companies pay for these surgeries or the
I don't
hormones or
quite
something.
understand if there had been a block or an you know, a what's the word? If they had stopped all transgender surgeries, then how were they filling in any forms for any procedures at all? Because
Yeah,
I know
that's interesting.
in the Belgian context, I came across a Facebook group where they were sharing with each other information on how to, exact same thing, circumvent the insurance rules against public reimbursement of mastectomies, not for non-binary, not for whatever, just mastectomies for trans people. And they weren't already in the policy. The authorities hadn't yet covered them. It's covered now. And so they were calling it things like scar fixing scar
Treatment.
tissue. Yeah, just
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
random. They had different codes, so it wasn't that. It was like, what was she telling them to put in the insurance codes? Was she saying pretend it's a straight up trans thing and not non-binary, or like
Yes.
female to male? Okay.
Pretend we have in German we are still in the ICD-10, not in the ICD-11, and in the ICD-10 we still have the transing from one sex to another. You want to be you are a woman and you want to be a man, and not you are a woman and want to be nothing,
Yeah,
want to be
it's
non-binary or
binary
something.
trans. They call it.
So
Yeah, binary trans. The
yeah,
activists call
and
it.
it's called F64, and this is the number you have to put in these letters so that you have a chance that the insurance companies maybe pay this. Some insurance companies still pay the treatments even if they don't have to at the moment. So yeah, the trans people are fighting to get their things paid, but the insurance companies, are trying to block this already. And so the endocrinologists also come to the
That's interesting. So the insurance companies are trying to block it because the experience
yes,
I've had
yes, yes.
here in Belgium is that
Yeah, they are
the
allowed to block
companies
at the moment.
I've noticed that we have mutuelle in Belgium, which I guess is it's everyone has to have it. So maybe the systems are too different for this to be bother making an equivalence. But I have the impression that the mutuelle, which is the public insurance that everyone has to have, they're making an effort to to advertise that they do the rainbow stuff. Like they're like, come to us and we'll reimburse your surgeries, whatever. And I also noticed in the same Facebook group that I was talking about earlier that women would explain to each other, okay, so they were saying when they had troubles getting the money back for their mastectomies, if they used dodgy codes or whatever, there were certain names within the insurance companies that they were sharing with each other and say, this person fights on our behalf from within this insurance company, etc. So, but you're saying something completely the opposite. In Germany, the insurance is trying not to reimburse these surgeries.
Some of them not. Some of them make it a bit more difficult than before. They don't have to pay it at the moment, especially if it's a new. If they have a new letter, if they are already in the procedure of changing their gender identity, then the insurance companies have to pay it further. But they can also say, no, we don't do it at the moment. And so we have also the endocrinologists having the problem that the insurance companies say, no, we don't pay for these drugs. And so we have pressure not only from trans activists at the moment, but also from the doctors who prescribe these hormones to legalize this whole thing. So this is behind this whole thing, that they try to find a way to legalize it in Germany, to circumvent also these, how do we call it? The benefit assessment procedure, to circumvent this whole evidence, searching for an evidence and finding a way in only 1 year to pay for also non-binary interventions. And we all know non-binary means everything. I also wrote an article about it, what non-binary means. It can mean to cut everything off, everything.
And put everything on. So I've
Or
seen
put everything on as you wish, as you wish. It's yeah.
The phrase that I've come across for females is the vaginal retaining metoidioplasty or something. I'm getting it slightly wrong, but it's basically you keep your vagina and you add its phallus like clitoris type thing. But then there was also this horrific story. Yeah, it's Frankenstein stuff. There's an even more Frankenstein version though, where men keep their penis, but they get the rest turned into some sort of hole. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's where we're headed, basically. So you're saying all that in the context. This is the context in which Sabine Maur gave this webinar to fellow medical professionals, where she was saying, "Look,
yes,
psychotherapists, and this is a very prominent and prestigious grouping in the political system in Germany that actually advise the government, the authorities on protocols and stuff like that." So she's saying to fellow psychotherapists, what you need to do is if somebody comes to you and they're having a non-binary, they're not a binary trans woman. This is a trans person. This is a person who wants to be neither male nor female. So in order to reimburse these procedures, you're going to have to put this on the form. So that webinar was recorded. Somebody else made it public on Twitter. And who was that person? Was that TERF like us, or was somebody? So we don't know.
It's
like
a man who is doing investigative research about this whole issue for years now. But he's anonymous. I don't know him. He shared this video, and I didn't know that it was a leaked video, that it was not allowed to film it. So and it was online since September 2025. And I shared it in January 2026. So it was months. There were months between it. It was online for months.
And do you know when the webinar itself took place? Because he put it online.
I think I think some days before, and it was not publicly shared. She had it on her website that she did this seminar, but she did a lot of seminars like this.
Right. And so, so it was fresh when he shared it, but by the time he shared it, it wasn't fresh.
It was already a month old. So,
okay, so what happened?
She wrote a letter with her lawyer to me then, that I have to delete these tweets, the describing tweets about her practice, and also the tweet where I shared the video. And my strategy is never to delete anything, never to, yeah. She should have known it, that if I have the chance, the problem in Germany is if you are reported to police, I get regularly reported to police. They also wanted to take my fingerprints for writing tweets. So, no, they regularly do this, and in Germany you can't talk about the person who reported you to police. You can't talk about what you see in the documents you get via your lawyer. So you have to be silent about it. But if someone draws you to court, you can go to public and talk about it. And she should have known that I'm not afraid to talk about it publicly all the time. They do it. If they do it, I go to public.
So what's her deal then? She didn't know you, but she did know you. You were telling me before that she knew you well and that she'd already criticized you online or whatever. Did she expect that you'd get scared and just sort of scuttle away and not say anything
I
anymore?
don't understand it really, because she should have known that I'm not afraid. Um, but she had a lot of also in her seminars. She had screenshots of my tweets, or she shared it on Instagram stories, and called it medical harassment. Called my critique medical harassment. They
Is that
call
a
this
thing?
whole
Does that
thing
exist in German law?
no. And they
Okay.
call this whole thing a transgender hate campaign. What we are doing, we all know this, that what they are doing if we criticize these procedures, for example. And
Right.
yeah, their problem is that we are not afraid to talk about it publicly, and we are not afraid or not ashamed. I'm not ashamed if she draws me to court. If she wants me to go to court, I go with her to court, and then we'll see what the judges say. I
Right.
won't.
And so what you were saying to me earlier then is that if it's just an investigation with the police, you can't say anything about what's going on. But
Yeah,
once it goes into court, everything's fair game and it's all open or whatever.
yeah,
You
yeah,
get okay,
yes.
that's great. So
And
you were like doing it
I was
on.
silent before, because if you do this letter that she wrote to me, she tried to force me to delete this all. If I don't do it, she will go to court. There was a threat: if you don't do it, I will go to court. And I already took my lawyer in. But I didn't talk about it publicly, that she tried to make me delete all these things. And in the meantime, the press already reported about this video in Germany. I was not talking about it anymore. I didn't share it anymore. I also didn't talk about that she tried to silence me. I said, okay, I wait until she really invites me to court. If she starts to invite me to court, then I will go public, full stop. No problem. And yeah, like this, I didn't think that she would really do it, but she did it. And then I started to crowdfund via Frauenheldinnen, and got a lot of money in a very short time.
Great.
And so you also see there are a lot of people behind me, or behind women like me, who fight for this. Yeah, it's for me. It's
How did the press report on it? How did they present it in the press? Poor, stunning and brave trans people being
no,
interfered with
no,
by
no,
this
no. It
peaceful
was a
woman?
critical
No.
article. And
Right.
she also, the lawyer of Mrs. Maur, also wrote a letter to this newspaper and threatened them with legal action about this. About this article. And my goal in this whole thing is that we are allowed, and that we must speak about it publicly, because they always try to silence us. They always try to that people don't look deeper inside this whole thing, and that people don't discuss publicly what is happening there. And so this was my goal, and I achieved my goal already, because the newspapers already wrote about it.
Right. But so tell me about what happened in court, because I'm interested in knowing if what she did in that webinar by instructing people to try to circumvent the insurance rules, was she doing something? We know she was doing something unethical, that's clear, but was she doing something illegal? Was she doing something that could get her fired from her position? Or were you doing something illegal by sharing something? You know, what were, in terms of legalities, technically, who was in the wrong? And what was the charge that she was trying to get you on?
Yeah, she wanted to that I delete this and that I'm not allowed to share this video. That I'm not allowed to share a video which was recorded in a private setting. But I didn't the recording. I just shared it. And she also wanted me to delete the first tweet in which I wrote about her being a trans activist and only, showing a one-way strategy for people who say they are trans. And so one part of the tweet I'm not allowed to say anymore, but
Oh,
the rest is okay. So,
was it
and
libel? Was it like defamatory, or
no, no,
what
no,
was the...
not at all. It was not defamatory. It was about her. It was about content and about her practice, about what she is doing, not what she's personally. I was not attacking her personally, but they called it a transphobic hate campaign. I didn't do it with a hateful approach, this whole thing. I criticized her sharply, of course, but
Yeah,
I didn't attack her personally.
right. But I'm just wondering, because in the context of all this stuff that's going on with Amnesty International, which I'm sure you've no doubt followed, where they said terrible things about J.K. Rowling's charity and about Sex Matters and various other groups. The part that you're not allowed to talk about in your tweet, is that something that was considered damaging to her and that's why you can't talk about it? Is that what you mean? Or what was, I'm not asking you to say what it was, but the nature of the interdiction is because it damages her reputation, or...
It's about damaging her kind of approach medically, and but it was my tweet didn't have any reach. It didn't have. It was about. It was very little. It was about 1,000 people reading it, and not a lot of people sharing it. Nobody really saw this
is it
tweet.
deleted now?
Yeah, now I had to delete it. Yes, but it was there were not many people who yeah, who read this tweet or shared this tweet. So
And so the judgment in court, then, she was saying, so the illegal thing you're supposed to have done is that you shared a private communications and you shouldn't
yeah,
have. And the judge, what happened in court?
yeah. The court said that I won already. I have a small part where I lost, but in 3 parts from 4 I won. And my lawyer attempted to get the video as how do we say it in English, that the video is something of contemporary history, and if you get this in Germany, we already had this with the butterfly who looks like a child love symbol with this photo,
Oh,
that it
yeah.
is an image of contemporary history. And the judges also said it's a video of contemporary history, and then it doesn't have any copyright protections any longer, and also no personal rights protections. And in the court, the judges, we had 3 judges. She was not present; only her lawyer was present, and the judges said, "Okay, we would like to do a settlement because it's not such a big thing. Can we do a settlement? Mrs. Duve, would you be fine with deleting the tweet and deleting the video and maybe write a new tweet about this whole thing and change some words or something like this?" They don't really know how Twitter works. They don't know that Twitter is a threat, have threats, and they don't know that I can change a tweet from a month ago. So they said, can you change a bit and so on? Then everything would be okay. And I thought about it because I got a lot of money and I thought, oh, can I do this? But my goal was that people talk about this video, that people talk publicly about what is happening behind closed doors.
You know,
And we
sure.
already had this in the public by media. So I can't. I didn't have far reach with my tweet. My tweet didn't really reach people, and we had German media reporting critically about it. And so my goal was reaching. I said, okay, no problem. I delete this. And then they asked Mrs. Maur if she would be fine to do the settlement. And Mrs. Maur said no, she wants a judgment. And so the judges said, okay, if you want a judgment,
What kind of judgment was she expecting? Like, was she expecting to be told, you have been. What I don't understand is, what was she expecting that she was going to. She wanted to limit the reach of this tweet, but it was already gone. It had already been in the media. All she had to do was shut up and it would all go away. Maybe. But she was trying to get you. She was trying to get you, or what was her ultimate goal, do you think, if you had to read her mind in proceeding with the case? Like, surely she wasn't trying to reduce its reach at that point. Was she trying to be told, you are the victim here? Like, what did she want, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. It was strategically what is wrong what she did. It was not. Yeah. It was nothing. She reached nothing with it. Or yeah, and the judges also warned her. They said, okay, if you would like a judgment, because the judges don't like to write judgments because they have to write a lot of. They have a lot more work if they have to write a judgment. And the judges warned her repeatedly, and said, okay, if you would like a judgment, then it may be total damage for you. So maybe you should think about it. But then she said she wants a judgment. And so at the end, this judgment was a total damage for her. She decided to have this judgment. I didn't decide it. But afterwards, they were talking about like she was the victim, but it was all her decision. So she had a lot of chances to draw back and say, no, we do a settlement. It's already in the public. I have to explain it in a different way. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what her motivation is.
And
Because
so what was the outcome then? What was the finding, and what damage did it do to her?
yeah, the damage was at the end that the judges said, yeah, the judgment was really hard for her. It's not a judgment about, it was a judgment about what I'm allowed to say and what she has to bear somehow. But they also talked about that she is in a very high position in Germany as a psychotherapist, vice president. And so if she tells other psychotherapists how they can circumvent regulations of German law, then it's not okay. That it was a very hard judgment for her, and a very long and hard judgment.
But then did that have professional repercussions, I guess, then? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was not about her profession at this moment. This would be another case. She would have go to another court. Yeah, also this court was not about if she is allowed to say it as a psychotherapist or not. I don't know how to tell it in English, but this is about her profession. There would be, yeah, another
A
court
different
case where
process,
it's
yeah.
about her
But so
profession, if she is allowed to say this, because she is
right.
also responsible for other psychotherapists in this position to look if they are doing something against German law. And
No
if
way.
she in this position is leading other therapists in this direction, then it's not okay. So, and they also said it's important that the public knows what she's doing.
Yeah. But in this case, it was essentially, the ruling was, no, this woman has the right to circulate this video.
Yes.
But it had no bearing on, and the judgment was harsh about critical of her, but it had no bearing on her profession, because that's a completely different court and
Yeah.
process and
Yeah, but
everything
they
else.
talked about her profession. They talked about her position, her very important position. And yeah, that she tells other psychotherapists how to circumvent German law, and that this is a problem. And so
And so you said earlier that she's the former vice president of this
yeah, and
body. Is she quit?
after the judgment, some days later, she stepped back from her positions. And she was not only vice president of the German psychotherapist chamber, but also president of the chamber of federal state in Germany of Rheinland-Pfalz. So she had two important positions in German psychotherapist chambers. And she stepped back from both, or stepped down, I think you say, from both positions afterwards. And interestingly, the chambers, were all so sad and talked about. They wrote about how there was a trans hostile hate campaign who led to her losing her position and something like this. They tried to
Surely,
attack
I mean, some
me.
people wrote some things, I guess, but surely we can only hope that the majority of people who work as psychotherapists in Germany don't hold that opinion. We can hope.
I'm not
What do you
sure. A
think?
lot of,
You're not sure.
I don't know. Because there were some other organizations who also said it was a hate campaign. And now they try to use this case to say, oh, we have a problem here. We have to have regulations for so-called non-binary people. They have to hurry on to have these procedures paid also for non-binary people, because if they don't do it, these marginalized people suffer so much, and we need to give them mastectomies and testosterone and so on.
This is the irony also that I find when I draw attention to the dysfunction of the current system. For example, the buying hormones online. So young people are either doing DIY, which
Yeah.
means they buy hormones from India and then juice themselves themselves. Sometimes they'll do DIY, which means you buy these raw drugs from Indian pharmacies, get them shipped in secret packets. And then the other one is they'll go through these really dodgy online companies like Gender GP and Imago and all that stuff. And so when I draw attention to that and how horrifically dysfunctional it is, like, I mean, the Imago company is an autogynephile sitting in his bedroom, in a gamer chair in Poland, and he's the one doing the intake. And then the company's registered in Malta. The guy who runs it is from Poland, living in Amsterdam. And the crooked doctor who signs their prescriptions is in Spain. And so people all over, especially the Nordic countries and in Ireland, are using this service all the time. And it's extremely dodgy. The guy is dodgy. Everything about it is dodgy. But when you draw attention to it, they say, that's a sign that we need to have much better informed consent care and GP-led care. And we need to, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, so yeah, in your case, you're saying that look at what these people are doing in order to circumvent the current situation. To say, yeah, that's why we need to improve the system to incorporate non-binary identities.
Yes.
This is predictable. How much did it cost you? Can I ask that? Like, I'm just kind of interested in how much needs to be raised for this kind of case. And it's not the first time you've had to do this. And how much does it cost to go through this process?
I don't have already the whole costs, because we had a second. She draw me to court again. She wanted to fight against the judgment, and so we have to
Oh, you
wait
mean
out this
since
whole.
that judgment?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes. So
she's appealed it. Oh
date
my
last
God.
week, and
Oh
she
my
would
God.
have lost the whole thing if the judges would have done a judgment again. The judges in the higher court, she would have lost the whole thing. And she had the possibility, they showed her the ways to say, okay, I take the case back. I don't understand why she is allowed to do it if we already sit in a courtroom, or if we are already on Zoom in the courtroom. How she can be allowed to say, okay, I draw back after the judges explained that they would give her a total loss. And so,
Yeah.
and I also don't know, she can also still do another court proceeding against me for this point which I lost, because she can try to force me not to say this any longer with a very high punishment if I do it again. But it's only 2 words. It's so ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And I don't know where the money is coming for her to do this whole thing. My lawyer alone costs 5,000 euros per case, per court case. And then you also have these costs from the judge, from the court and so on. I still have to look how much it will be at the end. But I'm lucky that a lot of people help me in my funder, and so there is enough money there at the moment.
I'm really
And
happy
the
to
rest
hear
of the
that.
money will be used for other cases.
Right. And so that came through Frauenheldinnen, which is the Women Heroes organization, which is going strong. So in terms of like, you're saying that the mainstream press, there was an article about it, but in terms of the authorities or the medical establishment, like what's the reaction? Have there been opinion pieces? Has there been criticism from people who've been sort of sitting on the fence until now about this? Like, are you cracking the wall of silence?
We had an article at the beginning in the Bundesärzteblatt. It's the professional paper for doctors in Germany. And they followed an article from a queer organization, which is led by a queer police officer, queer female police officer, who is also very aggressive against me, I think. They wrote about that this would be a trans hostile hate campaign, which I launched, and Frauenheldinnen also launched, and the poor Mrs. Maur was drawn to court or something like this. So there was no real talking about how she is responsible that it went like this. She was 100%, in my opinion, it was her fault what she did, because she would have had a settlement. It would be over, and she didn't want a settlement. She wanted a judgment. And the Bundesärzteblatt took this article of this queer organization. It also said it is a queer hostile hate campaign or trans hostile hate campaign, which was launched, and why Mrs. Maur had to step back. But we wrote a lot of letters, and also from the inside, from gender critical doctors also, there were protests, and so they had to change this article. But she was, I think a lot of people liked her a lot. And we still have the problem that in Germany, some of the psychotherapist organizations are still really transgender ideologues. So we don't have a lot of critical voices there. I think there are critical people, but they don't talk about it publicly, because we had already some people who talked about it, some professional people who talked about it. And they had a lot of problems in their professions afterwards. They get the hate campaigns. So I think it's a problem for them that I, as a graphic designer and a feminist activist, come from outside of the professional world and say, let's talk about it. And also, I have a lot of knowledge about this issue. I have made a lot of research about it, read a lot about it, wrote a lot about it. So if I go to court, I can also say, okay, we have problems with the guidelines of WPATH or something like this, which a lot of people don't know. And they also try to say, okay, I'm not an expert, so I can't say anything about it, but that's not true. I know a lot about this issue. So
you know more
I
than
think
a lot of
some of
them.
the experts were happy about it, but they don't talk about it publicly.
So yeah, just to finish up then, because it's an important step from what I'm hearing in breaking the omerta on talking about it. Like all of these little and big different developments are steps towards breaking the wall of silence. So this is kind of a big one,
Yes.
because especially when a court says when a court turfs out, when the court does it, then everyone says, okay, I've got the legal system seal of approval here, or whatever. I'd noticed that in every country, it's really like so slow, but every development like this really does contribute towards making people feel safer to speak out. So, I mean, by the sounds of it, I mean, I remember when I first started writing about this subject, one of the first stories that I covered was Marie-Louise Volbrecht in Humboldt University.
Mm.
Remember,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
a very different atmosphere. We can say that it was a very different atmosphere back then, which was what,
Yeah, of
2022
course. Yeah.
compared to now. So if this had happened in 2022, you probably wouldn't have got as much money, you wouldn't have had as much support. Um, how do you feel about how it's changed in those last 4 years? Do you see more courage?
Yes, I see more courage. There are a lot more people behind us, a lot of more people who are brave enough to talk about it, to go to the streets and be visual. It only works like this, I think. It only works to break the spiral of silence. We must talk about it. It can't be, yeah, we have to talk about it. And so that is the special thing in this case, because two courts in Germany now said no, it is not a trans hostile hate campaign. In the last court date, they said it's on the level of investigative journalism, like Günther Wallraff. I don't know if you know Günther Wallraff. He was investigating the situation of workers in coal mines and of poor workers in coal mines in Germany. And so they proved that I can talk about it, and that it's allowed to discuss this issue in Germany. And so this is the thing that is important. If they come again with this is a trans hostile hate campaign, you can say no. It's legitimate to talk about it. It's important that we all have the possibility to talk about what is happening there.
I would have thought it would be considered in the public interest. I think that's probably the wording that would be used in that's
Yeah.
the kind of
Yes.
outcome that might be considered in some Anglo jurisdictions that I've come across. Um, it's also, did anyone like report her to her ethics body or a regulatory authority? Like she is the regulatory authority, maybe. I don't know did anyone take that route?
There is a procedure running since before the first court case against her professional behavior. And there was also a report to police that she is doing fraud. She used this in the second case because the police in Mainz, in her own city, said, or the Staatsanwaltschaft said, it's not fraud what she did. But I don't think, I don't know. Maybe some more reports to police would be good. I don't know. But there is a professional procedure running. So, but I
Right.
think, okay, this is really hard for her. Also, it's also a woman, I think. And now she stepped back, and I don't have to take a hammer and always go on hammering on her and say what a terrible woman she is or something. That's not in my interest. I want to talk about this whole thing. I want
Right.
to talk about what they are doing and
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
damage somebody's personal life or
Yeah,
something
the
like
point
this.
was never to destroy her career. The point was to have an opening to get people
Yes.
talking about it. Last question then. What are you doing? What are you planning to do to be able to expose this more? Are you just continuing to write in your Substack, which you write in German and in English, from what I've seen the last few articles, at least the last year or so? You'll
Mhm.
publish it on your Substack. You speak to media whenever you can. You talk to people like me. What else are you doing to get the conversation going in German about this?
Yeah, I also have this website, Was ist eine Frau? What is a woman? And we use this platform to do letters, for example, where other people can send letters to politicians. We prepare the letters, and they have to just put a button and have this whole thing in their email window, and then can write to politicians for different sub issues about this whole gender identity thing, because we also have the problem of men in women's prisons. At the moment, we also have a pedophile in a women's prison. And we have to keep going. And on this website also, we have this map where we document what is happening, so that nobody can say, oh no, there's happening nothing. And there's only this Liebig case, because it's not only the Liebig case in Germany, this
The
right
Liebig case,
wing.
just for people who don't know, is this neo-Nazi who started to pretend to be a woman, probably taking the piss. But I mean, I looked through his Facebook, his socials, and he just looks like every other German transvestite man that I've ever seen. So I don't know how anyone has decided that he's not really a trans woman. Like, none of them are
But he's
really
going
women.
into a
obviously.
man's prison. He's
Yeah.
now going into a man's prison. And the pedophile, the pedocriminal, went last week in the women's prison. So think about it.
Jesus.
It's a
But
problem.
also, something that I wrote about yesterday in my newsletter was they all call him she, her still, but he's in a man's prison, but they still call him she, her. And I just don't understand this inconsistency. It's like, you either believe this is a woman and therefore you put her in her rightful female estate in prison, or you give up the whole thing and you call him he, him. Like, where is the logic in that? But so we have to appreciate this asshole for bringing it to the news, I guess. But he's not a feminist. He's not doing it because he cares about men and women's spaces. I just want to ask one last question. I know I keep saying it's the last question, but this is definitely the last question. Oh yeah, just tell us where we can find you. So your website, Was ist deine Frau? If people go to Was ist deine Frau, can they see the map?
The map is on a special page. The front page is not the map. But I can give you the link so that people can go to the
What
map
does the
directly.
map show exactly?
The map is showing the cases in Germany where, for example, pedocriminals or sexual predators call themselves women, but also trans activists being aggressive against women, men trying to go into women's locker rooms or something like this. So we have to make, I think for the long run, we have to do a more categorization of this whole thing. But at the moment, we collect everything we can get. We can't really get everything because press or media is already reporting about men as women. So it's sometimes very difficult to find out who is really a woman and who is a man. But we try to do it, to report this whole thing. Yes, I'm on Substack with Rona Lies, and and I have also a website for this attempt to change the German constitution, Article 3, which is very important for German women.
Is this the one that tries to add sexual
identity? So I'm
identity?
doing websites again and again, doing activist websites about different issues concerning this thing in Germany.
You're very courageous. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And thanks for explaining to my listeners your most recent legal entanglements. And I hope that, as I said, it's yet another step towards allowing people to speak openly about it. The courts are on your side now. So that's a nice boost of legitimacy. Thanks, Rona.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
If you like my work, you can subscribe to my newsletter by going to peaks.substack.com and taking out a paid subscription.